All the objects pursued by the multitude not only bring no remedy that tends to preserve our being, but even act as hindrances, causing the death not seldom of those who possess them, and always of those who are possessed by them. Faith is nothing but obedience and piety. Big fish eat small fish with as much right as they have power. Those who know the true use of money and regulate the measure of wealth according to their needs live contented with few things. Everything excellent is as difficult as it is rare. I make this chief distinction between religion and superstition, that the latter is founded on ignorance, the former on knowledge. The good which every man, who follows after virtue, desires for himself he will also desire for other men. In the state of nature, wrongdoing is impossible, or if anyone does wrong, it is to himself, not to another. He that can carp in the most eloquent or acute manner at the weakness of the human mind is held by his fellows as almost divine. In so far as the mind sees things in their eternal aspect, it participates in eternity. Nature has no goal in view, and final causes are only human imaginings. Many errors of a truth consist merely in the application of the wrong names of things. Sed omnia preclaritam difficilior quam raris sunt. He who hates anyone will endeavor to do him an injury, unless he fears that a greater injury will thereby accrue to himself. On the other hand, he who loves anyone will, by the same law, seek to benefit him. Ambition is the immoderate desire for power. What Paul says about Peter tells us more about Paul than about Peter. Everyone is by absolute natural right the master of his own thoughts, and thus utter failure will attend any attempt in a commonwealth to force men to speak only as prescribed by the sovereign despite their different and opposing opinions. To understand something is to be delivered of it. A free man thinks of death least of all things, and his wisdom is a meditation not of death but of life. The more intelligible a thing is, the more easily it is retained in the memory, and counterwise, the less intelligible it is, the more easily we forget it. Desire is the very essence of man. By reality and perfection I mean the same thing. I call him free who is led solely by reason. He whose honor depends on the opinion of the mob must day by day strive with the greatest anxiety, act and scheme in order to retain his reputation. For the mob is varied and inconsistent, and therefore if a reputation is not carefully preserved it dies quickly. The highest endeavor of the mind and the highest virtue, it to understand things by intuition. All happiness or unhappiness solely depends upon the quality of the object to which we are attached by love. Yet nature cannot be contravened, but preserves a fixed and immutable order. Laws which prescribe what everyone must believe, and forbid men to say or write anything against this or that opinion, are often passed to gratify, or rather to appease the anger of those who cannot abide independent minds. No matter how thin you slice it, there will always be two sides. In a democratic state, nobody transfers his natural right to another so completely that thereafter he is not to be consulted. he transfers it to the majority of the entire community of which he is part. In this way all men remain equal, as they were before in a state of nature. The human mind cannot be absolutely destroyed along with a body, but something of it remains, which is eternal. The object of the idea constituting the human mind is the body. To comprehend an idea, a person must simultaneously accept it as true. Conscious analysis, which, depending on the idea, may occur almost immediately or with considerable effort, allows the mind to reject what it initially accepted as fact. Blessed are the weak, who think that they are good because they have no claws. The multitude always strains after rarities and exceptions, and thinks little of the gifts of nature, so that, when prophecy is talked of, ordinary knowledge is not supposed to be included. Nevertheless, it has as much right as any other to be called divine. Happiness is a virtue, not its reward. He who has a true idea knows at that same time that he has a true idea, nor can he doubt concerning the truth of the thing. The most tyrannical of governments are those which make crimes of opinions, for everyone has an inalienable right to his thoughts. Whatsoever is in God. Pride is overestimation of oneself by reason of self-love. Reason is no match for passion. How would it be possible if salvation were ready to our hand, and could without great labor be found, that it should be by almost all men neglected? But all things excellent are as difficult as they are rare. Things which are accidentally the causes either of hope or fear are called good or evil omens. I saw that all things I feared, and which feared me, had nothing good or bad in them save insofar as the mind was affected by them. He who, while unacquainted with these writings, nevertheless knows by the natural light that there is a God having the attributes we have recounted, and who also pursues a true way of life, is altogether blessed. When a man is prey to his emotions, he is not his own master. I do not presume that I have found the best philosophy. I know that I understand the true philosophy. He who would distinguish the true from the false must have an adequate idea of what is true and false. Citizens are not born, but made. Men believe themselves to be free, simply because they are conscious of their actions, and unconscious of the causes whereby those actions are determined. Those who are governed by reason desire nothing for themselves which they do not desire for the rest of humankind. Vulgus semper hic miserum manet. The passion ceases to be a passion as soon as we form a clear idea of it. Pride is pleasure arising from a man's thinking too highly of himself. Surely human affairs would be far happier if the power in men to be silent were the same as that to speak. But experience more than sufficiently teaches that men govern nothing with more difficulty than their tongues, and can moderate their desires more easily than their words. Only free men are thoroughly grateful one to another. If men were born free, they would, so long as they remained free, form no conception of good and evil. Nothing forbids man to enjoy himself, save grim and gloomy superstition.